Well, I finally got all my Christmas shopping done yesterday. Got one person in my family who, thanks for the vote of confidence there, thanks. Got that one person in my family that's really hard to shop for. She'll tell me all these little things she needs, but finding something that's, kind of meaningful is always kind of difficult because, this is a person that already has a lot of stuff. And we try not to accumulate more. So I wanted to spend part of yesterday going out shopping, looking for something. And Heather says, "What store do you want to go to?" I say, "I don't know. I've kind of just got to look around until something strikes me as the right gift." So we loaded up, went to the mall in Colony and walked around. And we'd been wandering for maybe about 45 minutes, and they've got all these merchants set up in the middle of the mall, and one of them has these wood carvings, and I see the right one. I say, "That's the right one." It's one of those things where getting up that morning, I didn't know what the right gift was, but the minute I see it, I know that's the right gift. And I kind of feel that way with joy. I don't always know joy right when I see it, but when I experience it, I say, "That's it. That's joy." So last week we took a trip. We've been taking a trip all of Advent. We went back to ancient Rome, to the middle of the peace of Rome on that beautiful day in the city when, as long as you are Roman, things are looking up. But then we talked about what the peace of Christ meant in comparison to the peace of Rome. This week I want us to journey a little bit further. I want us to go to the outskirts of the empire. And I want us to journey to the year of the consulship of Sabinus and Rufus. And I want us to travel into a home where two women, one named Mary and one named Elizabeth, are meeting and sharing their unexpected pregnancies. Elizabeth, who always thought she was too old, and Mary, who knew she was too young. And in that house, in the midst of those two women, I want us to move close to an experience of joy. Because like everything else that we have explored this Advent season, we are going to find joy in a place where we might least expect it. Not in a place of happiness or contentment, but in a place of hardship, in a place of uncertainty, in a place of struggle, in a place of oppression. Leo Buscaglia writes about a time in his life when his father had lost his job. His father comes home and informs the family that he lost his job, and his mother goes, sells her expensive jewelry, and buys a large feast for them to have for dinner that night. And you can imagine that the family was kind of quite confused. Here they are on the face of uncertainty, maybe on the brink of poverty, and why are we having a large feast? Why aren't we tightening the reins? Why aren't we making sure that we have enough to get by? And his mother says the following: "The time for joy is now, when we need it the most, not next week." Well, folks, here at First, the time for joy is now, when we need it the most. Because I don't know about you, but it's been rough. It's been a rough time in the world. Just last week, a house exploded on the West End and has displaced dozens of people. Entire families displaced, uncertain of what the future holds. It's hard. Right in this community, we know of the economic uncertainty, the poverty, the homelessness, the unemployment, the underemployment. it's hard. That's to speak nothing of our national discourse, which is doing great, I've heard. I'm ignoring it. The world issues that we're having, we've got a few wars going on. We've got human rights atrocities going on. And that's not even to speak of the climate crisis that we're facing, the loneliness in the world today, the heartache, the mental health crises, the physical health crises. We're going through a lot. This has kind of felt like the year that we have recovered from the world-changing pandemic, yet we continue to see its devastating effects on us still to this day. We're going through a lot. We've been in this middle of this, not a recession kind of thing, for like 2 years now. We're going through a lot. And all of our families, I don't know if any of us have a family where there is not some struggle today, some place of uncertainty. So even as the world is going through a lot, even as culturally we're going through a lot, individually we're going through a lot. And the time for joy is now, when we need it the most. Several years back, many years back, there was a Presbyterian church conference. And what they did at this conference was they gave every attendee a helium-filled balloon. This was before we kind of were wise to the fact that we probably shouldn't be using helium or balloons the way we do. But that's what they did. They gave everybody a helium-filled balloon, and they wanted the attendees of this conference to release their balloon when they felt joy. They were Presbyterians, so they couldn't just say it. They had to have this balloon that they released. And throughout the conference, balloons would rise once in a while. Once in a while, you'd see a balloon floating towards the ceiling. But by the end of the conference, most of the attendees were still holding on to their balloons. And I can't tell you if that's because they never experienced joy in that conference. I've been to so many conferences where it's been bereft of joy. Or if they just were so unaccustomed to being asked to express their joy. One of the things I love about the Christmas holiday, the Christmas celebration, is that it takes place on these darkest nights of the year, these nights that just seem to go on and on. Now, I hope I'm not breaking anybody's immersion here, but we know Jesus wasn't born on December 25th, right? We know that was just a made-up day by the church. But I think it was made up for a reason. Because Christmas invites us to bring light into this season that is otherwise very dark, at least in this hemisphere. I assume in Australia they celebrate completely differently because it's summertime there. But at least in this hemisphere, we celebrate Christmas almost as if we are saying that we are intentionally bringing more light, more joy, more happiness, more peace, more love, more hope into this season that can sometimes seem profoundly dark. I think it's very important that we remember that when the sun sets in about an hour and a half, we remember that as the church, we continue to bring light into the world. We continue to bring joy into the world. But the thing I keep thinking about joy is how joy is absolutely worthless if it stays right in here. Joy is absolutely worthless if we don't share it with someone else. It's almost kind of selfish if we think about keeping joy just for ourselves when we know so many in this world are experiencing such a profound lack of joy. There is something deeply communal about joy. Something that deeply needs to be shared with someone else. We human beings, we have this design about us where we are a relational people. That we do best when we are in relationships, healthy relationships with others. And I'm not talking about romantic relationships. I'm just talking about relationship in general. We do best physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally when we have connection to other people. Back in the spring, I was listening to a story on NPR about what they're calling the loneliness epidemic. That a frightening number of people in the world today are reporting that they feel lonely most of the time. And I can't help but think that that goes hand in hand with how we experience joy, or maybe better said, how we don't experience joy. That if we are lonely, if we don't have those human connections with one another, it becomes harder and harder to experience joy in life. And I hope I'm preaching to the choir this morning in the fact that if we're coming out to church this morning, that means that we are actively seeking out community, that we're actively seeking out relation with other people. But we're going to go places this week. We're going to meet people this week who don't have those connections, who don't have those relationships. And when you don't have those connections and when you don't have those relationships, think about what that means about joy in your life. Who is feeding joy into your life if you don't have a healthy relationship? Who's feeding joy into your life if you're telling a researcher you spend most of your time lonely? Joy might begin with that nice warm feeling in here, but it goes from there out into the world. And then it starts to do something amazing. Because once joy is released into the world, it starts to change the world. I quizzed the 8:15 service on this. I'm going to quiz you too. How many of us know the mission statement of the United Methodist Church? Yes, I still only got one. Make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. You know, there was a lot of hubbubaloo about that second half. Everybody was on board about making disciples. But when they started sitting down and saying, why do we need that second half? Why do we need to transform the world? There was a lot of people that said, yeah, let's just cut that out. We'll have a nice simple statement. Make disciples. I am so glad changing the world won the day. I'm so glad transformation had the last word, because that's what we're in the business of doing as a church. We're not just coming in these walls, feeling good all the time. We're getting out of these walls. We're changing the world. We're challenging systems of oppression. We're challenging warfare. We're challenging climate change. We're challenging a world that seems indifferent at times. The mission of the church, part of it at least, has got to be world transformation. And on this Sunday, I want us to think specifically of the role joy has to play in that. Mary and Elizabeth come together in their pregnancies, and Mary sings possibly the most beautiful song. This song about her favor, but also this song about how the child she is carrying will tear down the systems of oppression and lift up the lowly. It is a song of joy for the transformation of the world. I hope that as we go into the world, we carry a song of joy on our hearts. But not just a joy for ourselves, and maybe not even a joy just for those closest to us, but I hope that our song of joy this morning is a joy for the transformation of the world. Because this is the moment we need joy the most. And who better to do it than the people of FUMC? Who better to do it than us right here, right now, in the world today? Folks, there's a lot of places not feeling joy today. There's a lot of places struggling. There's a lot of places where it seems it's just too much right now. Be the song of joy. Be the song that brings joy, if not to the whole world, then at least to one other person this season. Next week, Christmas Eve, 7 o'clock, we're going to be right here. We're going to be singing some of those nice old-fashioned Christmas carols. We're going to be hearing some of those old stories that we probably all know by heart. But part of that experience is also going to be not just joy for ourselves, not just the joy of a child tearing into those gifts under the tree on Christmas morning. Part of the joy that we're going to be sharing is the joy that brings us into the world, not just to make disciples, but to transform a world that is ready and waiting to be transformed. Folks, I'm going to invite us into a moment of prayer. God of outstanding joy, some of us are people for whom joy comes easily. Some of us not so much. Some of us have a hard time accessing that well of joy. For some of us, it comes easy to share joy, but for others of us, that is a hard ask. Lord, this holy time of year, this Advent season as we move into the wonder of Christmas, help us to allow joy to bubble up within us, to expand without us, to encompass the world, and then to transform the world into an image of creative beauty. I pray this in Christ's name. Amen.